All right, welcome everybody to another IAEI News Live. My name is Thomas Dimitrovich, and today's session is going to take a look at what's going to happen next week in Las Vegas at the NFPA annual meeting. This is the second to last step of the process. We're going to review that process. And we're going to review that process and come up with an understanding of what's going to occur next week. And if you're going to be there, things you need to know about, especially the review of the certified amending motions. Let's talk NFPA annual meeting 2025 here on IAEI News Live. And it all starts now. All right, we're back. And yes, it is, today's date is June 10th, and 2 days after Jake and Maggie's birthday. So Jake and Maggie turned 8 on Sunday. We were going to have a party, but I think we're going to have a party next week for those two little cats. But they're not cats, they're dogs. Anyway, the annual meeting. The NFPA, as you all know, NEC 2026 has been underway. Shortly after releasing NEC 2023. And the next stage of the process, so you think about the process, you have first draft, so you have public inputs are made, you'll have the first draft meetings, you have a first draft report, and everybody can see what happened during the first draft. Then you can make comments on what happened during the first draft. The comments are then reviewed at the second draft meeting. After the second draft meeting, those results will be posted. And then you have one more crack at the language at the NFPA annual meeting. If what you wanted to occur didn't occur and you still want it to occur, a notice of intent to make a motion from the floor of the annual meeting can be proposed. It will then need to be certified to make sure that you followed the rules. If it is certified, it will be heard at the annual meeting during the technical session. And the floor, all of those members who have been a member for at least 6 months, will have the ability to vote on that motion. What happens after that depends upon what the motion was. We won't get into that right now. I'll show you where you can find those rules, though. Then, if, for example, something happened during the first and second draft that you didn't want to happen and you think is an issue, safety concern, whatever, you can, again, make a notice of intent to make a motion. If it is certified, it will be reviewed from the floor and voted on by the members who have been a member for at least 6 months. So, there are rules, though. There are rules. I'm going to show you where to find those rules, and I am going to basically teach you how to fish. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the NFPA website. So if we go to www.nfpa.org/70, that gets you to the website. Once you're there, scroll down, and you'll see the current and prior editions, next edition, and then the technical committee. You want to go to next edition. You'll see the first draft, link to the first draft report. This is the process. Second draft report. And then you'll see that the notice of intent to make a motion closing date was April 18th, 2025. The notice of intent to make a motion posting date was May 20th. So that means all of those NIPMAMs and now certified amending motions will be available to the general public, because that will be your cue on maybe your motivation to be at the annual meeting. You never know. You may be so passionate about what occurred that you want to voice your opinion at the NFPA annual meeting. So you have two documents. There is the committee motions report, the NIPMAMs. You can view it, you can download it, and I'll tell you, if you hit view, I believe it just goes straight to download. Oh no, you can view it. So you can view that online. And then there's the NFPA technical meeting itself. This is the NFPA technical meeting tech session. And this is the agenda, so you can click on that, boom, and that will show you the agenda. We're going to review those documents in a moment. So those are your two, that's the next phase. Now the phase after this is going to be appeals to Standards Council. That's when it gets, I guess it's more legal-like at Standards Council appeals. There's no technical arguments that are being made. It's more, you didn't like what happened at the code panel, you didn't get what you thought should have happened, and your arguments at Standards Council are going to be process-driven. Either it was new material, it was they didn't hear or didn't get certain portions of the procedures were missed. And then you'll have to prove that to Standards Council. And then they'll make a ruling. So let's take a look at the agenda. Let's take a look at the agenda. Or no, I'm sorry, the report on this. This is the CAM. So the report of the NFPA Motions Committee for the technical meeting. It tells us it's going to take place live in Las Vegas, Nevada, on Thursday and Friday, so June 19th and 20th, at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center. Is included with the report. So they have the certified amending motions, and we'll take a look at where that is located at. How do I know what the process is? So what I would do is I would come up here to NFPA, and there is a link for Code Making Panel 1, 2. Where is it at? There is a link. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to go to current and prior editions. You'll see your TIAs, Standards Council decisions, erratas, and then additional information. So you've got the style manual, you've got the supplementary operating procedures for the NEC project. Let's take a look at that. That's not what we want. Those are the CAMs. There's a link on here. So if let's do this. Let's do list of codes and standards development. Let's take a look at that. So there's the process, which we just talked about: public inputs, public comments, technical meeting, and then your Standards Council. Here are the regulations and rules. So there we go. This is what I was looking for: regulations and policies. Here's where you'll see regulations governing the development of NFPA standards, the guide of conduct for participants, technical meeting convention rules, regulations governing petitions to the board. Here are your resources for the manual of style. Let's take a look at the regulations governing the development of NFPA standards. And it's probably going to download, and it does. It downloads a PDF to your desktop or wherever your thing is supposed to be. There we go. So there's the regulations governing the development of NFPA standards. All right, so this is your scope, Standards Council decisions, approvals, amendments, amending motions. These are all defined terms, okay, and what they are. So let's keep moving forward. Here's your section. So this is your TIA. Remember your tentative interim amendments. I always want to call it temporary. There's your tentative interim amendments. Appeals. All right. So, oh, look at this. Notice of intent to file a petition. Let's keep rolling down. If you go to establishment and operation of Standards Council, so we know what Standards Council is, establishment and operation of technical committees and correlating committees, so these are all your technical panels, how they're appointed, who appoints them, and all that jazz. So this is all about the process of developing the codes and standards. About your reference publications and things that Section 4 is development and revision of NFPA standards. Very important piece of the puzzle. There's your content for public inputs. This tells you the data that you need. What we're looking for is your notice of intent to make a motion. There's your preparation for first draft for balloting. So we're going through the process. There's your comment stage. 4.4 is the comment stage. Let's look what 4.5 is. 4.4. Section 4.4. What is 4.5? Wow, section 4.4 is pretty doggone. There's 4.5. There's your NFPA technical meeting considerations. This is the process of where we're at right now. Requirement of a notice of intent to make a motion. In order to make any amending, let me get rid of the bookmarks. Any amending motion permitted by 4536, so remember 4532, at an NFPA technical meeting, the intended maker of a motion must file a notice of intent to make a motion, or NIPMAM, in accordance with this section and comply with the sign-in requirement for certified amending motions prior to the NFPA technical meeting in accordance with section 2.7 of the convention rules. And we'd have to go to the convention rules to see that, which we will. There's your filing. Notice shall be filed with the Standards Council Secretary by the deadline. Any notice, and we saw the deadline on the website, any notice of intent to make a motion received after the filing date shall be returned to the submitter. Return to sender. Submitter. Then that it can be reasonably considered an act on the notice, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And let's go down to this section here. The notice to make a motion cannot be withdrawn without the approval of the motions committee. Who may submit the notice? The notice may be filed by anyone who meets the requirements of 4535 Charlie or 4536. So let's take a look at what's 4535. 4535 Charlie, there's ABC. The submitter of a public comment may designate a representative to make any amending motion that these rules would permit the submitter to make. And then 4536, amendments to the second draft as published in the second draft report of the technical committee report can be proposed through the making of permitted amending motions that have been previously submitted through a valid notice of intent to make a motion. The permitted amending motions who may make such motions and the effect of such motions are set forth in Table 1, columns 1 through 3. Oh, this is an important table. So let's go to Table 1. You notice how we're following the cookie crumbs. Here is Table 1. Very important. All right. This is the meat. This is the bread and butter for notice of intents to make a motion. What are the permitted amending motions? Motion to accept a public comment. Motion to accept an identifiable part of a public comment. Motion to accept a committee comment. Motion to accept an identifiable part of a committee comment. Motion to reject a second revision. Motion to reject an identifiable part of a second revision. Motion to reject a second revision and any related portions of first revisions and first correlating revisions. Motion to reject an identifiable part of a second revision and any related portions of first revisions and first correlating revisions. Motion to reject a second correlating revision. And I think finally, motion to reject an identifiable part of a second correlating revision. Oh no, there's more. So all of these motions, there's only 4 more, but all of these are the motions that you can make if, for example, and this is what the certification of the NIPMAM does. If you, for example, make a motion to add new material, add something that wasn't reviewed in a second draft, that's not a part of a second draft report, not part of a public comment, not part of a public input, not part of a correlating revision. Now you're outside of what is permitted by this table. So it's really important, and it was important for those who have successfully filed a notice of intent to make a motion that has been certified. It was important for them to understand these rules to make sure that their motions were valid. So let's go back. Let's go back up here because this table has so much more. It tells us who is authorized to make the amending motion. If you're going to accept a public comment that was made, the submitter of the public comment is the one who is authorized to make the amending motion. If you have a motion to accept an identifiable part of a public comment, the submitter of the public comment. A motion to accept a committee comment, anybody can make that motion. A motion to accept an identifiable part of a committee comment, anybody can make that. Motion to reject a second revision, anybody can do that. Motion to reject an identifiable part of a second revision, anyone. So what you're seeing is we moved when it was a specific public comment. If you want, say you liked my public comment, which everybody would. I don't know why you wouldn't, and I wouldn't understand why it would even be rejected. But in any case, let's say that I had a public comment and you wanted my public comment to be accepted. I'm the only one who can make the notice of intent to make a motion. What you could do is make a motion on the second revision. Anybody can make a motion on a second revision, either to reject the entire second revision or to reject an identifiable part of a second revision, reject a second revision and any related portions of the first revision. So this means you want to send it all the way back to the previous code edition. Motion to reject any identifiable part of a second revision and any related portions of first revisions. You can do motion to reject a second correlating revision, identifiable parts, second correlating revision, any relatable portions. And then you can return an entire NFPA standard or a new NFPA standard. If you do that, the entire NFPA standard is returned to the technical committee. Woo! That's a big one. You know, that did happen once on 99. NFPA 99 was sent back. And we didn't have an addition. And look, the final result is the new NFPA standard is not issued. And it has to go back to the committee. Motion to return the entire NFPA standard, new edition of an existing NFPA standard. Certified amending motion is not available. However, anyone can make a motion to return an entire standard as a follow-up motion. Requires 2/3 support to pass. See the convention rules. The entire NFPA standard is returned to the technical committee. The new edition of the NFPA standard is not issued, and the previous edition remains in effect. And that's the one I believe happened to NFPA 99. Okay, so those are the things. So first step is you have to think about what your motion is, and then you got to make sure that you are permitted and you're authorized to make that amending motion. The column 3 tells us what is the amendment or return that results. So if you, let's say you're the submitter and you want your public comment accepted, and let's say that it passes from the floor, the amendment changes text of second draft in accordance with the public comment. Does the committee or committees ballot on a successful amending motion? Yes, the committee ballots the successful. That means it goes back to, let's say, for example, let's say you wanted GFCI protection for anything Tom installed, regardless of what it was, because he's a klutz. And you made this motion from the floor, and you were permitted to make the motion because you had the public comment. And now that means you're putting something into the code. Then it would have to go, and let's say that it was panel 2, it would have to come back to panel 2, and they would have to vote on it again to see if they really want it. That means the voice from the floor was heard, that they want to put something back into the code or accept, for in this case, a public comment. The technical committee, in this case, say it's panel 2, would review it and either vote yes or no. They could still vote no. What is the recommended result? If it passes, the public comment text is incorporated into the next edition of the standard. The related text, if the amendment fails ballot, meaning at the committee ballot, not the floor meeting, because it has to pass the floor to be able to get to this phase, then if it fails ballot, the related text returns to previous edition text. Where no previous edition text exists, the text is deleted. And there's no committee ballot conducted. So that's what happens with that process. All right, that's the committee ballot conducted. And this is NA because no committee ballot conducted is not applicable. All right, so now let's go down to one where, okay, motion to reject a second revision. Anybody can make this a motion. The amendment rejects the second revision if it passes and returns to the related first revision, if any. If there is a related first revision, in that case, the committee ballots the successful amending motion. So this means it went back to, say, the first revision. That was when you first had consensus. That language may or may not be good for whatever reason, because they made changes to maybe to fix an error. It reduced and removed safety. If you go back to that first revision, then the committee has to ballot it. If it's successful, then it's incorporated. If it's not, it's not incorporated. If there was no first revision to that, maybe it was changed in the second revision, right? So maybe the proposals were made in the first revision and they were all rejected, and there was no first revision to that section of the code. Then, there is a second revision, you're balloting or you're motioning to reject the second revision. Since there's no first revision, it's not balloted by the committee at all, and the related text returns to the previous edition text. So it goes back to, in this case, if somebody made a motion to reject the second revision for the 2026 code, there was no first revision for that section. And if it passes at the floor, it doesn't go to the technical committee, it goes back to the 2023 edition of the National Electrical Code. All right, so let's scroll down a little bit more. So, motion to reject a second revision and any related portions of first revisions and first correlating revisions. That means you want it to go back to 2023. You don't want any of the changes made in the 2026 code cycle. Anybody can make that motion, and the amendment rejects a second revision and any related portions of the first revisions and first correlating revisions, meaning it goes back to the previous edition of the code. It's not balloted by the committee. It does not go back to the technical committee at all. It based upon the voting results from the floor, it just occurs. The related text returns to the previous edition text. Where no previous edition text exists, the text is deleted. So a good example of this is, say that a new article was proposed. A whole new article for whatever, I don't know. Well, there was a new article. There was a new article I proposed that panel 12 accepted, which is the article on self-propelled electric vehicles. If somebody makes a motion to reject the second revision and any related portions of first revisions for that entire article, because it's totally new, and it passes from the floor, then there was no previous edition text in the code. That's the reason the new article was being proposed. It's not been accepted at the annual meeting, so the entire article goes away, period, because there's no language in the previous edition of the code that it would go to because it never existed. Make sense? All right. So that's the process of that one. So this is how you read this table, and understanding the process when you're making that motion, notice of intent to make a motion, is a critical piece of the puzzle. I probably should have done this little video before the deadline for the NIPMAMs. But, you know, my head is in annual meeting mode, so I wanted to share what I'm reviewing with you. All right, so these are the rules. And now if we go back, let's go back. We sort of veered off of this. The schedule stands to present the debate of the certified amending motions, and we're going to take a look at those. Note that the final order in which the certified amending motions are called may be amended at the motions committee discretion. Any changes will be posted. Oh, here's a link. So let's click on this, and I didn't want to do that. Let me go back. I want to go back because I want to copy link, and I'm going to open a different window. Control V. All right, there's your technical meeting. Boy, look at this, huh? This is interesting. I don't know who that was standing at the podium, but they got their badge on, and you'll see is a red, and sometimes you'll have a black. If they typically go by color, if your badge, I think, is red, then you are permitted to vote. Or maybe if it's black, you're permitted to vote. And red is, I don't know which way it is, but your badge will identify clearly whether you are permitted to vote or not. Because I think you use your phone, if I'm not mistaken. It used to be that you raised your hand, and they went through this entire process. Then they went to these little handheld things where you pressed a button and you watched the vote come up, and it was very nice. I like that. I like the anonymity because you can vote however you want to vote. It's like you're voting. It's like going to the polls. You can go in saying, I support this person, and then go in and vote differently because it's your vote. Nobody needs to know how you vote. In the past, it was, they sometimes would separate the room. Anyway, this is the website. There are some frequently asked questions up here. These are the standards, NFPA 10, NFPA 50. Oh, wait, what does this say? The complete technical committee records documenting all revisions created during the revision cycle page. Oh, so these are examples for your review at any time. Anyone who has continuously active member in an association since December 21st, 2024, because this will be 6 months before, is registered for will be eligible to vote on all CAMs, certified amending motions. So there's the agenda. Here's the report of the motions committee. That was what we were just looking at. These are the documents that are going to be reviewed. NFPA 10, 25, 70, 130, 855, and 1850. There were 3 CAMs that were withdrawn subsequent to the posting of the motions committee report. CAMs 855.35, 36, and 41. We'll take a look at those in accordance with the regulations, okay? All right, so let's take a look at, I think it's the same document. It's a download. All right. Okay. Let's scroll down and take a look at some of the cams. All right. Here we go. This is NFPA 10. We're going to go to NFPA 70. Here's where it starts. These are the suggested changes. Now, I'll tell you that this is a table. Down below in this document is the language. Let me, I'm not going to give you a headache. I'm going to scroll down. All I'm doing is scrolling down to the bottom of the cams where I'm going to go to NFPA 70. I'm getting dizzy. And we can take a look at the language. Here's the first one. Yep, here's the first one. All right. So all I did was scroll down towards the bottom, and all of this is, public information. You can go out and you can follow along with me. I would hope that you would. Certified amending motion to accept public comment number 218. Recommended text if motion passes. And what this submitter wants to do is bare copper or grade 40 copper clad steel. So they're trying to get copper clad steel as being recognized for the concrete encased electrode. And if it fails, it's not in there. So that's basically what this this document is showing you, is that here's what the language, and this is what they'll do at the annual meeting. They'll put it up on these big monitors. This is what will have the code will look like if it passes. This is what the code will look like if it doesn't pass. And you have for and against microphones, and you will argue. So the first one is to add the copper clad steel. This is the second one. Ballot if cam passes. So again, there's another one, 250.52A3 concrete. They want to add the ore grade copper clad steel. Then here's another one. This is 70-41. Again, copper clad steel, 250.52. A4 ground rain. They want to add the copper clad steel in there. And there's another one, 250A4. Yep, this is amendment ballot to 70-41. Cam, public comment number. This is Cam 70-41. If you agree to support the amendment, this is what happens. If you disagree, that's what happens. All right, so this is Tom Dunn. I know Tom. Tom's a good guy. Tom Dunn does, he educates for IBW. He teaches codology and a few other cool stuff. He's a good guy. If you're watching, Tom, hope you're doing well. He's out of New York. What Tom is looking for is recommended text if motion passes. Where's the underlined and where's the strike through? I'm looking for underline and strike through, underline and strike through. There it is. Informational note number 4, he wants to remove to C 500.8 Charlie 5 for the ambient temperature range requirements. Now, what you don't have as part of this is the reason why the proposal is being made. I believe that information should be coming shortly. I remember last cycle there was a webpage that gave the arguments, but you will definitely hear the arguments from the floor. All right, so we scroll down to the next one. Okay, here it is. This is probably same thing. It's Tom Dunn again. He wants to remove that note. Doesn't like that 500. He's a Haslock guy, so we tend to love to hear his arguments. So this one is Ryan Jackson. Certified amending motion, reject second revision. So that means if they reject the second revision, what happens? If there's a first revision, it goes back to that, and then that gets balloted by the committee. If there is no first revision, then it goes back to the previous edition, and it doesn't get balloted by the committee. And what is he looking for? He wants to remove exception number 3, residential, non-fused, single-phase disconnecting means rated 250 volts or less, and not exceeding 60 amps shall be in sight from the equipment and accessible. Residential non-fused single-phase disconnecting means. I'll bet you if you go to the code, I'm going to do this over here. Gotta find that page again. This is in 440.14. 440 is your HVAC stuff, so this is what you can do. You can go out to NFPA, you can go to the first draft and second draft and see when that language was put in. I am going to open up the first draft and second draft. I'm going to take a look at the first draft and see if 440.14 had that language. 440.14 did not. First draft did not. So, in fact, there was a first draft to the section. Now, that's a good question. I'm not sure. He wants to remove exception number 3. Reject second revision 8079. Second revision. So 440.14. I'm just curious. I'm trying to say, okay, theorize. If I was standards counsel, what would I do? So SR 8079 looks at the entire section 440.14. It added exception number 3. It was all one for 440.14. There is a first revision, 8051, for 440.14. My gut tells me that if this passes the floor, the code-making panel that deals with 440.14 would reballot FR 8051 to see if they still support the language in the first revision, which only added the word open for is lockable open and changed, and it's in the informational note to say, see Article 430 parts 7 and 9, and they removed of Article 430, so they just relocated of Article 430 to align with the style manual. So that's all that they did in that first revision, but I believe because this is on the second revision, it should go back to the first revision, which is 8051, and that would be reballoted by the committee to determine whether this survives. Make sense? You see that? It's now if Ryan did not agree with what happened in the first revision either, then he would have made a different motion to say to reject all of the. Let's go back to the table. What did the table say? Where was the table? Was it here? Yeah. He would have said, he did this one, motion to reject the second revision. If returns to the related first revision, in this case there is a first revision, that would have to be balloted. If that ballot passes, then the related first revision text is incorporated. If it doesn't, the related text returns to the previous edition text. Where no previous edition text exists, the text is deleted. So this would mean they're not balloting on removal of that's already occurred. They're balloting the first revision, saying, do I agree with the first revision? Which would be adding the word open for lockable open in accordance with 110.25 and fixing the informational note. So Ryan would have achieved deleting. What was he looking to do? Deleting the exception number 3, because the code panel will more than likely accept FR 8051. Make sense? You wouldn't want to go all the ways back. Okay, so let's take a look at the next cam. All right, next cam. All right, so this one says ground fault circuit interrupters. This is okay. So there were a lot on 625.54. To tell you the truth, there were, I'll tell you how many. On 625.54, there were, let's say a lot. Well, yeah, there were 11. 11 certified amending motions. So you have, this one wants to, it says certified amending motion to reject second revision 7875 and any related first revisions and first correlating revisions. So this wants to take it back, all receptacles. So this is deleting everything in 625.54 that was added during this cycle and send it back to the 2023 edition of the code. And I believe that would be 7875. Wait, what's the CAM? CAM is 70-58. So I will tell you that 70-58 70-147, 151, 77, and 178 all sought to do the same thing. They want to send the entire section back to the 2023 edition. Now, I'm just going to see if 70-61, the next CAM is 70-61, which is on a completely different section. This one is on 110.22, shall be legibly marked to indicate its purpose, unless, remember this one. Ooh. Mark Hilbert, okay. I'll tell you what happened here and why Mark is got an issue. What the code panel was trying to address. The code panel was trying to address the purpose and source. So remember, there was a change of 110.22 during the 2026 code cycle, or actually the 2023 code cycle. I think it was 2023. Hold on. I am so positive, but I want to read the language to you. If you go to 110.22 in the 2023 code, 110.22 in the 2023 code, it says in parent text A, in first level subdivision A, it says, in other than 1 and 2 family dwellings, the marking shall include the identification and location of the circuit source. They added and location. So that meant that you needed to put the actual location of that disconnect, of where the disconnect is, which could be, second floor, whatever, instead of just circuit breaker 5AB. Okay? You had to have the location of the circuit source, which seemed to be a little bit onerous. Now, here's the problem. The first sentence of the previous language said, this is identification of disconnecting means, 110.22. General, each disconnecting means shall be legibly marked to indicate its purpose unless located and arranged so the purpose is evident. There's no qualifications that it's other than dwelling units or dwelling units or whatever. It's all disconnecting means. Each disconnecting means shall be legibly marked to indicate its purpose unless located and arranged so that the purpose is evident. So if I have a disconnect on the wall, I need to know, what is this thing disconnecting? I look around, I don't see any equipment, I can't see the conductor. Now, if I have a disconnect mounted to a motor housing and I know, and I can see the conductor, it's evident that this disconnect impacts this motor. If I don't have that, then I need to mark the disconnect. What they did in the 2026 code, and I think personally it was by accident, because I can't see anything in the panel statements that says they intended this. They removed, in other than one or two family dwelling, they removed the first sentence. Actually, I'm looking at his language. Hold on. What they did was, they said, each disconnecting means, in other than one or two family dwellings, shall be legibly marked to indicate its purpose and circuit source, unless located and arranged so the purpose and source is evident. That means in a dwelling unit, you don't have to mark it at all. Before you had to. For ages you had to. So what Mark is seeking to do in A is say, look, let's strike out in other than one or two family dwellings and say each disconnecting means shall be legibly marked to indicate its purpose. Remove the circuit source and say unless located and arranged so the purpose is evident. And then he added, in other than one or two family dwellings, the marking shall include the identification and location of the circuit source that supplies the disconnecting means, unless located and arranged so the identification and location of the circuit source is evident. The marking shall be of sufficient durability. So his motion is to reject the second revision. So if we go to 110.22, if we go to 110 and we go to 110.22, there's the second revision 7626. And then if I look at the first revision and look at 110.22, right? Each disconnecting means so he wants to do, and any, see that? I missed this. Look what it says up here. Reject second revision and any related first revisions and first correlating revisions. So basically, okay, what he's doing is he's sending it back to the 2023 edition. All of the language in that takes it back to shall meet the requirements. He takes it back to, so he wants to basically say, and if he, let's go back to the table. Let's go back to the table again. So he wants to reject the second revision and any related first revisions and first correlating cycles. Reject the second revision. Motion to reject an identifiable part. Motion to reject a second revision and any related portions of first revisions and first correlating revisions and first correlating revisions. Anybody? The amendment rejects the second revision and any related portions of first revisions and first correlating revisions. It does not go to the committee. And if it passes the floor, it goes straight back to the previous edition. It does not have to go back to the committee. So that's the process. Each of these CAMs will be reviewed. I'm not going to go through them all. You can do that yourself. I showed you how to get to that information. And just in case you forgot, let's do it together. All right, you go to www.nfpa.org/70. Scroll down, go to the next edition. You'll see the first draft, the second draft, motions. There's your notice. Those are your NIPMAMs. These are your motions committee report. You click that, or you can download it. You can download it, and you can have access to see what the certified amending motions are. And then this is the agenda for the meeting. This basically tells you, and I have that over here. This is the agenda, so it tells you that they're first going to go through NFPA 10, then 25, then 130. Then they're going to hit 855, then 1850, and then finally they'll go to 70, and they're going to hit 70, 91, 61, 87. So you'll see the order, and this order can change, obviously. The committee can elect to modify this order. These are all of the CAMs on the electric vehicle 625.54. That's all your GFCI CAMs. 70-120. What is 120? This is this 70- this group is all on 625.43, and I believe they're all pretty much the same. They want to remove the emergency disconnect. That's what all of these want to do. Remove the emergency disconnect for electric vehicle charging equipment. So you can read through those and be mindful to go to this regulations and policies, technical meeting convention rules, which is a PDF, which I downloaded about, I don't know, maybe 14 times now, because every time I click it, there's the NFPA technical committee rules. This will tell you to be professional, all that jazz. There's your agenda, your meeting sessions, distribution of materials, visual aids, certified amending motions, determination of proper motions, restating the grouping of motions, multiple notices, certification of amending motions and motions committee report, permissible amending motions, sign in. So the persons authorized in the motions committee report to make a certified amending motion, or his or her designated representative identified in writing by the authorized maker of the motion, shall appear in person and sign in at the designated location in the meeting's registration area. So every one of these individuals who made a certified amending motion, if they wanted to hear it, either they had to do some homework and get someone else able to speak on their behalf, or be there themselves to introduce their own certified amending motion. That's an important part of the process. Conduct of the session, time to debate each motion, time restrictions, rebuttals. So these are all of the rules governing the activity at the annual meeting that you should be aware of. All right, so that's sort of what's going to happen next week. In addition to a lot of other stuff, you can go out to the NFPA's website and you can register for the event. Take a look at the agendas. There are a lot of good technical presentations. There's a trade show. There's a lot to do. You will see myself and many other people walking around the hallways of Mandalay Bay and Luxor. I'm staying at the Luxor. You can stay anywhere you want out there. And enjoy the festivities of talking to code professionals, NEC, code making panel members, chairs, all that jazz. All the right people are going to be there. It's not an event to miss if you are a fan of the National Electrical Code and the process. All right, I'm signing off for now. Thank you for watching. Thanks for everything that you do for the industry, for the electrical industry, and for electrical safety. Remember to stay safe, and please Stay healthy.